All right, let me see if I can actually put this smaller. No, I can't. Okay, so anyway, so family medicine going rounds, and we're gonna talk about a book, the new CME system. There you have how to do it in case that somebody needs it. We're gonna share these, right, eventually, so yes, they will know how to do it. Okay, all right. And so these are the South Texas Regional Family Medicine Grand Rounds. I don't have any disclosures to make. And this is about these books. Thanks for the feedback. It's the science of art, an art of receiving feedback well. Not just receiving feedback, but receiving feedback well. And it's by Douglas Stone and Sheila Heen. So what are the objectives? We're going to define what feedback is. We're going to explore and apply instruction on how to give feedback and how to take feedback, which is actually more important. And we're going to summarize the book's approach, some of the skills that you need to receive the feedback. So some of the numbers, this was amazing to me. To prepare and engage in annual performance reviews, right? It's 825 million work hours. So around 94,000 work years a year we are using to do this activity. And then on top of that, 51% of the people that receive these evaluations believes that the performance review was inaccurate or unfair. And a quarter dreads their performance review more than anything else, which is not good. So what counts as feedback? Any information from any source that you get about yourself. Give me 1 second. No, that's fine, because we're having an echo. All right, so the term was coined in the 1860s, but was not used. It was used for biology sciences, and it began to be used in the 1950s. So after the Second World War, to refer to talking to people about performance, and that was in mainly in the industrial realm, and most of it was because of issues with safety. So it was not necessarily about performance, but it was performance about safety. So something that we have to know up front, and one of the most important things that we're going to talk about, is the key player is the receiver, not the giver, not the person that is giving the feedback, not the person that is utilizing 94,000 years of work hours, or work years, but the person that is actually listening to the feedback. And one first thing that the book says that I found interesting was pull beats push. So what that means is the feedback giver gives the feedback. The feedback receiver offers resistance to the feedback that is being given. So the feedback giver is actually encouraged or trained to be persistent, to push harder, which is not going to work anyway, because there's only so much push that you can do. So mainly this is because the receiver is in control. And what are they in control of? They're in control of three particular actions. They're in control of what they do let in. So they're in control of listening to the feedback. They're in control of how they interpret what they hear. And that is about learning from the feedback. So first interpretation, and that interpretation is learning from the feedback. And then they're in control of whether they choose to change or not. So enacting. So that's very key from the book. I think that, again, the first thing is the key player is the receiver. And why? It's because the receiver is in control of these three things: what they do let in, the listening, how they interpret what they hear, the learning, and whether they choose to change it or not, the enacting. So, who? Pull is about mastering the skill to drive our own learning instead of being pushed. So these basically is based on two things, which are the yellow lines. So it's based on how to recognize and manage our own resistance. We do have the resistance. We're going to have the resistance no matter what. It's about how to recognize and manage that resistance. And for that, it was seen in research that there is such a thing as a feedback-seeking behavior. And that behavior is related to higher satisfaction at work, greater creativity at work, faster adaptation to a new role, and lower turnover in any position. And even more so, it was seen that seeking negative feedback, so points of weakness, let me get this out, were also associated with higher performance. So again, what is pull instead of push? Instead of being pushed and being told, since we are in control of the listening, the learning, and the enacting, the receiver is, it's about the pull. So it's about how to recognize and manage our own resistance and how to engage in feedback with curiosity, how to find insight that is going to help us grow. Like I said before, any information that you receive about yourself is considered feedback. So feedback is directly related to how you process any information that is coming your way. So it's directly or basically hooked with learning. Now, there is another book that is called Extreme Ownership that I read recently, also in relationship to feedback and a little bit more complex. So I just wanted to bring it in on this. And it's also listed in this book. So it refers to you have to own your learning. And the key variable of your growth is not your supervisor, it's you. We are going to expect that we have awesome supervisors in our workplace and that they have their best interest in mind for us and they want us to grow and everything. But you should not expect it. And probably we all know that those are far and in between, if I'm saying the expression correctly in English. So this is about ownership in relationship to get good at learning from just anyone. Any information that comes your way is feedback. And anybody that is giving you should be listened, because the thing is about learning from anyone. All right, so the main problem about feedback are what's called the triggers. And the triggers may block the feedback that you're receiving, may. So what are those triggers? Those are three. And the way that the book, for those that read the book or are gonna read the book, the way that the book does this is less linear. It's a little bit more going into one of these topics and then just exhausting that topic and then coming back to it. So I did a little bit more linear. So what are these triggers that may block the feedback? These are truth triggers, relationship triggers, and identity triggers. And just a word about triggers. They are reasonable and they should be expected. That's a normal reaction that we all have. But the problem is that even though they are reasonable and it's normal, it should be expected, what they are actually doing is they are blocking us. They are keeping us from engaging skillfully in the conversation. Even if you engage, the other key word here is engaging with skill. So again, going back to receiving feedback, it's three processes or three skills, and it's a process of sorting and filtering. So sorting what is useful and filtering what is not. And that is the part of listening. It's the process of understanding how the giver sees things or us. So there is the need for learning in that process of understanding. And it's the process of experimenting. So trying on ideas that may seem a poor fit. Just trying, just experimenting. So enacting. So what are the truth triggers? The first of the triggers. There are three, we said. They are set off by the substance of the feedback, okay? So the feedback is either wrong or unfair or unhelpful. Anybody want to say what type of qualifiers these are? I mean, I just make it easier for you. These are, as you see, opinions. They are personal qualifiers. If something is wrong, it's wrong to me. If something is unfair, it's unfair to me. And if something is unhelpful, it's unhelpful to me in particular. So again, who is in control of the feedback? Not the giver, but the receiver. So the truth triggers are about the substance of what we are being given. And I'm gonna leave here what we're talking about. And so we're talking about truth triggers for a while, and it's gonna be about substance of those. And I think that the main thing that I got from this first part of the book, and I'm gonna say this as I keep doing this lecture eventually in the years to come, if you guys give me accurate feedback, not good or bad. There's not such a thing as good or bad feedback, but accurate feedback. I will get better at expressing this book, which I think that is key and probably everybody should consider learning from it or reading it, right? So you have to determine what kind of feedback is being given. So there are three types of feedback. There is one feedback that is about appreciation. It's thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Then there is another feedback that is about coaching. Here's a better way to do what you're doing. And then there is another feedback, the last one, that's about evaluation. Here is where you stand. So we're gonna go in each of one of those. So appreciation. Appreciation is thanks. And appreciation motivates. So it's good. So it's the easiest one, right? So that's why I started with it. And it's often requested, so we all understand each other, when the statement is, we do not get enough feedback at work. They are not telling you you're not getting enough guidance at work. They are telling you you don't get enough feedback. When it's that in a specific, when only the word feedback is being said, it's typically that people are seeking for appreciation. And why is that important? So it requires three qualities to count as appreciation that the giver should know, not the receiver in this case. But like I said, who is in control of all these is the receiver. So it's good that the receiver knows them too, right? And I'll tell you in a minute why. So it requires three qualities to count. It has to be a specific, the specificity of it. And if it's not a specific, it doesn't count to that person. And it can actually go into what is playfully, we'll say, named a mutual appreciation deficit disorder, and it gets you mad, okay? So feedback has to be specific. When you're complimenting somebody, when you're showing appreciation in your feedback, you should be specific about what you are appreciating. If not, this basically doesn't work. It has to have value. So it has to be given in a way that the receiver hears clearly and values. So as a giver, you have to think, okay, I have to be specific of what I'm appreciating from you in my feedback. If not, you basically don't take it. And it has to have value. And the value is given by the receiver. So you have to know the receiver enough that you're going to be able to say, okay, this person is going to appreciate this type of value. And I have to express it this specific way. So again, it has to be given in a way, so expressed in a way that the receiver can hear it, which is not the same way for everybody. And then it has to be expressed in a way that the receiver also values, not only can hear, but also values. And then it's the third quality that requires to count is authenticity, the appreciation inflation. This has been throughout the culture a problem. You probably have heard me at some point talking about getting the participation trophy. And that is one of the things that will give you appreciation inflation if showing up to work is what you're appreciating. that is going to decrease the value of the appreciation of that feedback that you're giving as appreciation. So again, if you are doing that type of feedback, appreciation, you have to be specific, give it in a way that the person will receive value from it. That is not the way that you necessarily would receive value yourself, but what that person that you know will receive value from, and it has to be authentic. Now, for the other way of giving feedback, or the other class of feedback that has to do with the substance of the feedback, it's a coaching. Here's a better way to do what you are doing. What is what coaching does? It's supposed to guide. So we saw that appreciation type of feedback motivates, but coaching type of feedback guides. And when do you think that you have to, or you have to begin thinking that you need to give this type of feedback? When the statement is, we need more direction. This is a little bit more specific than the previous statement that says, we do not get enough feedback at work. If you're just naming feedback, probably you're just wanting appreciation. If you're saying that you need more direction, then you probably need coaching because you need guidance. And it's in response to two kinds of needs. So what originates the coaching? Here's the better way to do it. Two needs: need for improvement to build capability. So actually what's happening is that something is missing. So you can begin to see how this will create immediate friction, because this is a problem. So when you're coaching, you're expressing needs, which is not expressing things, which is less conflicted, less friction creating. And the needs again are for improvement or to build capability because something is missing, or the need is for problem solving because something is wrong. Okay, so types, there are three: appreciation, no friction. I will say that if we are going to look into friction, we should look into value, because you may be given appropriate feedback in terms of appreciation, but you may be given it in a way that the other person cannot take it or value it. Then coaching, like I just said, more friction. And then the last one is evaluation. Out of the three type of feedback initially, evaluation is here you stand. And that has a lot of friction embedded in it, because basically you're ranking that person. You have to, in that type of feedback, do two things. You have to align the expectations. You have to have expectations yourself and have expectations expressed by the feedback receiver, and then align them, or at least attempt to do that. And then you have to clarify the consequences for the where you stand. So the consequences of ranking. And maybe you guys are already thinking about this, but thinking about friction, which was the origin of the interest in the book. This type of feedback has implicit or explicit comparisons, judgments, opinions to a particular set of standards that not necessarily are the standards of the receiver. It's typically the standards of the giver. And the receiver is being basically put in a ranking. So there is tension right there. What is the pitfall of this? So when you're doing coaching, there is always evaluation in coaching. So not only you have the tension of the coaching, which is referred from, or is coming from the need for improvement and the need of problem solving because something is wrong, you also are adding the tension in the comparison to a ranking or standard, which is outside the receiver. So careful with that. Understand that, yes, there are three types of feedback up front, but when you're given either coaching or evaluation, you're actually doing both. So now, you have to reflect on which kind you want or expect as the receiver, because the match matters. If you're looking for my appreciation and I give you coaching that you may need, then we are mismatched. I'm giving you something that you were not expecting, and there is supplemental friction on that, which again is the main thing why we're doing all this talk, is to kind of like have ideas in which, you know, what are the parts that are creating friction, and then go into trying to decrease the friction. All right, so now we said get aligned. So these are, again, truth triggers, and this is about the substance of the feedback that you're receiving. So you have to get aligned. So you have to discuss the purpose of the feedback explicitly, either appreciation, coaching, or evaluation. So going back to what I just said, reflect first on which kind you want as the receiver, because the match matters. And then express that openly. Discuss the purpose of the feedback explicitly. I'm gonna put that in yellow if I can. No, I can't, later. But it should be in yellow. And then express it. You know, I'm here for feedback, but today what I need is appreciation. I'm here for feedback, but I need coaching because I need direction, because I really don't know if something is missing or if something is wrong. And I'm here for my evaluation because I really know where I stand, because, you know, I need to know where I stand, and I need to know what the expectations are and how you're ranking me where you are ranking me. And then also, to get aligned, checking periodically the purpose is understood and being fulfilled. And many times you have heard me saying, is this helpful what I'm saying? Or I don't use this is what you expected. No, my primary language is too complicated for me. But many times you hear me say, does it make sense? So check in periodically with the receiver. The purpose, is it understood what I'm saying? And I'm helping you here? And then discuss the needs between the two, negotiate. So if I were to break this down, I will say, this first part, discuss the purpose of the feedback explicitly, receiver. Check in periodically, the purpose is understood and being fulfilled, mostly the giver. And discuss the needs, both. You know what, I came in today for appreciation, but I can see that you're giving me coaching. So can we kind of like break it down first? You know, I need appreciation so I can hear you afterwards, your coaching. And I know that I need it, but and can we do that? Can we break it down? That is the part of negotiation. Now, interesting. Understand that you have to shift. You have to move. It's about you. It's typically about the receiver, but it's also about the giver, but mostly about the receiver. Shift from what is wrong with your feedback is to, oh, tell me more. Oh, I didn't expect that. Wow. Oof. Tell me more. So why? Because we're really good at wrong spotting. Okay, that's basically our adaptive mechanism as humans. You guys have heard me many times saying everybody's gonna die. And that what I'm expressing is the worst case scenario. And what I'm expressing is that I'm trying to wrong spot what we are not considering or what could be wrong. And so that's kind of like a survival mechanism that we're gonna have. And again, you know, everything here is normal and it should be acknowledged as such. And the wrong spotting is one thing that is going to stop us in our tracks from the beginning, particularly the receiver. We are really good at seeing what is wrong and what we're being told. And we shouldn't do that. We should actually take it, like I said at the beginning, with some curiosity. Tell me more. And it's okay also, and I'm gonna say it afterwards, I think, in one of the slides, but it's really okay, and it should happen, to express your feelings when you're receiving the feedback. Oh, wow, you know what? I didn't expect that, for you to tell me that. But you know what? Tell me more about it so I can understand where you're coming from. Wrong spotting, it's listening to the feedback, thinking what is wrong with it. We're good at it. It's a survival mechanism. It is easy to be good at it because there's always something wrong. So it's not that difficult to wrong spot. But it defeats learning. when we are wrong spotting, we're not learning. We're just trying to reject what is being said. And I kind of like put a little bit of the menu. Sometimes you're gonna think, oh, this is wrong, whatever. Oh, this is different plan and wrong. I mean, this is not even close to what I do day in and day out. Oh, well, you know, I mean, this used to be right, but now it's wrong because I changed some of this. So, no, I don't think so. It is right, but do you have to tell me now? Really? Well, it is right for you, but it's wrong for me. I don't feel that way about the patients, and no, it's not my cup of tea, or no, it's not the way that I operate. You know what? This is right according to the wrong people. You're not really putting me in the correct tribe. Yeah, if you listen to the wrong people, of course this is right. Well, it's right, but the context is wrong. So the way that you're looking at it is wrong. And you know what? It's right, but it's unhelpful. So it's not going to help me. So those are the menu type of things. I just wanted to bring it up because we all have done that. And understand that I didn't say we all have listened to that or we all have heard that, because again, it's on us. So I'm going to say, I have done that. I'm going to shift. Okay. So again, understand, shift from what it's wrong with your feedback to tell me more. And how is another way to do that? To understand that the feedback arrives typically either as generic labels, because they have to, again, what I said about the ranking, right? There has to be certain system in which some name or some situation is given. So it either arrives as generic labels or it arrives with generic labels. And the label interpretation is actually specific to the giver, not the receiver. So right there, you have a disconnect. And that is creating typically the, but I said that, I said that's what was said by the giver. But the receiver heard something different. So that is the mismatch that is called what was said versus what was heard. And again, the label interpretation is specific to the giver, and it may not be at all what the label means to the receiver. We keep in the truth triggers and talking about the substance of the feedback, and we're trying to understand. So shift from what's wrong to tell me more, and then we have to play spot the label. That's a good game to play. So who plays spot the label? I think that the way to do it is, let me describe what I mean. And you can ask me questions to see if I am making sense to you. And that is going to be the giver, right? So again, most of the responsibility lays on the receiver because that's the person that has to enact. So for that, they have to learn, and for that, they have to listen. But the spot the label should be done by the giver because the label is from the giver. So let me describe what I mean by by the feedback that I'm giving you. And then you know what? Just tell me if I'm making sense here. Am I making sense here? Am I helping you? Now, we keep in the same thing. So understand that the feedback has a past, okay? And that's the looking back component, because I cannot give you feedback if I don't have a past with you. And how is that typically expressed by the giver? Here's what I notice, or what I notice. And the feedback has a future. So that's the looking forward component. Here's what you need to do. I want you guys to think about tension when you're listening to what I'm saying and reading it from the screen. The past, this is what I noticed. But then the future, this is what you need to do. So the other game to play is what's under the label. So ask about the feedback past. Where is this coming from? So you have to understand the data that was looked at, and you have to understand their interpretation, which is interpretation from the giver. And you have to try to understand their label. That is not your label, it's their label. If you're not making that effort, this is not a conversation anymore, it's a monologue from the giver, and then you're closed. You did wrong spotting. You said, whatever. And ask where the feedback is going to. Understand the label that is not yours, and understand the advice that you're being given. Here's what you need to do. But also clarify the consequences of not taking that feedback, because there is a possibility that you don't believe in the feedback given, and you're gonna have to know what the consequences of not enacting that feedback are. Now, the pitfall. The data is confused with interpretation. So what it's being, again, let me go back here. The data and the interpretation by the giver are confused as the same thing. Even I will go as far as saying that the giver is typically not aware of the differentiation between the data and the interpretation and the label that they are putting on you. So all that is in one go. Few people are going to break it down. So that's your job. Break it down. Break it down. What is the data that you're looking for, that you're looking at? And what are you making up from what you are looking at? And are you, so what does it mean to you? What is the label that you're attaching to this? What does it mean? Data is typically confused with interpretation. And you want to get a clear picture of both. That's why you have to ask, because you as a receiver, you want to have a clear understanding of what data was looked at and what interpretation is attached to the data. But now, this is a key. Many times, I have done it. I have said like, what is the data? And since the path of the feedback may not be recent, and maybe by the friction, the feedback giver, which may not be used to that, or you may be just threatening to that feedback giver for any reason. I'm a tall guy with not a very nice face, and I'm bald, and that doesn't help, and my eyes are very dark. And so careful with when you are trying to get information from the giver on the data, or at least that's what I have to be careful about. When I'm trying to get information from the data, I should not do that in a threatening way. I should do that in an open way. Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't like this, but it's okay. You know, you're safe. Tell me more. And what is your interpretation? Yeah. Oh, okay. Tell me more. You need to get a clear picture of both. Typically, the giver does not do the work of differentiating data and interpretation, their own label. It's on you. Like I said, you have to be able to take information from anybody, not just somebody that have read the book and it's perfect, it's such a nice person that you want to hug them. Not in my case though, but you have to be able to get data from anybody that gives it to you. Now, again, we're in truth triggers. We're talking about the substance of the feedback. We're trying to understand, that's the first part. And we're trying to shift, but now we're gonna try to shift from wrong spotting to different spotting. So different data, right? So we have to look at, you and me, we're looking at different data here, maybe. You know what I'm getting at? I think that what you're telling me, I don't think that it's wrong. I just think that we're looking at different things. So first question is, do I have access to that data that you're telling me that you're, that you're reporting to me in the feedback? Maybe I don't. Maybe I just don't have access. Maybe typically we don't have access to what our bosses do, particularly a couple of steps up from what we are. And so sometimes we'll make comments, that's a form of feedback. And you'll say like, whatever, I will have done this different. Typically that's said many times about the politicians and the president of the country and all that stuff. And then in reality, you don't have access to the information that they have access to. So you're looking at different data. You're doing the wrong spotting. You're giving feedback, in this case, in the form of a comment, maybe to a friend. I would have never done that. Well, you don't have the same data. So you're looking at different data. So get good at difference spotting. Understand that you're looking at different data. Then you have to also understand at the selection of that data. You're looking at different data because maybe you're looking at the same data because you have the access both at the same level, but the selection that the giver is doing, it's based on their own biases. And mainly that means that they are not looking at their blind spots. And you are, because you're not them. You're not blind to their blind spots. You can see them very well. So again, shift from, that's wrong, to, oh, well, yeah, this is different, okay? So let's try to break it down. And how you do that, you have to be aware that there may be a different interpretation. And the different interpretation that they have, again, talking about, like we said before, they are using a parameter, so they are using a ranking, they're using a comparison. So maybe their interpretation is different than yours. So for that, you have to look at the implicit rules. And the implicit rules of the giver are the rules about how they think things should be. Sorry about it. Oh my gosh, the way that I speak this language, awful. All right, sorry about that, guys. So again, different interpretation, okay? Look at their implicit rules, the things that they think that they should be a certain specific way, because you don't have those, the same as you don't have their labels, the same as you don't have their biases and you don't have their blind spots. So again, change from wrong spotting, no, that's wrong, to, or the different menus that I taught you, to different spotting. It's different data. We're looking at different data. It may be because I don't have access to that data. It may be that the selection that you're making of that data is not what I would have done. It doesn't matter. The giver is giving you information that is valuable, even if it's given poorly, bad, not a time, whatever, but it's valuable. And then understand that there is a different interpretation than the one that you will do, because they have different implicit rules. They are looking at different conceptualizations of the things that they should, how things should be. Now, why, since we're doing all this work, since we are trying to switch from wrong spotting to different spotting, why not try to do right spotting? Why not look at the part of the feedback that is right? And it may be hard, but that is what is going to create the ability to learn about the feedback, being open enough to go from, that's wrong, I'm not listening to you, to go like, we're looking at different things, maybe I'm listening a little bit, to being wide open and say like, you know what, I don't like what you're saying, but it's value to me, it's data that I don't have, so keep going. Now, you did all this shifting. You shift from what's wrong with your feedback is you to tell me more, which is what I just said, right? Spotting. Tell me more. This is of use to me. Maybe just a little part of it, but it's of use to me anyway. And that's typically going to be related to your blind spot, how you come across to others. And I'm about to finish, so hang on with me for a second. So these I found really interesting. And this will cover for half of the book. Too extensive to give in one class. So this thing that is called the gap map. And the way that they explain it is this way. I have my thoughts and feelings, and they are beautiful. They are that color there. What are we gonna call that color? Violet? Purple, fuchsia. And then my intentions are always gonna be great, green, right? But my behavior may be of a little bit of a concern, so we're going up in the color to yellow. And then my impact of them is typically not gonna be good, so it's on red. And that's gonna generate a story about me, which is, as you see, gray. And that's gonna generate the feedback, which is gonna go into a loop, and it's gonna create different thoughts and feelings. And then the same thing once and again. Why am I saying this? Because I think that if we think about this, we are all gonna say that my thoughts and feelings are awesome. I'm just a great individual inside. I'm all cozy, it's all perfect. And my intentions are pretty good. You know, I try to do with the beautifulness that I have inside, that beautiful landscape that I have inside my soul. I'm trying to do the best that I can in this limited world that we live in. But then I'm probably blind to my behavior because I have eyes for everybody else. But unless you put a mirror near me, I don't see myself. And then I clearly don't see my impact because I'm not in the skin of the other people that are there with me. And that is going to generate a story. And again, going back to wrong spotting, we're really good at the story is not good. I see all your bad parts. I see all your negative blind spots. And that's going to probably create feedback that is in red to me. I think that what we have been talking about as of now is we have to go back to understand that the key thing for us as receivers is the substance. And so sift inside the feedback that is given in the substance of it to something that is helpful to me. Considering that, of course, I'm wonderful inside and the way that I try to do stuff is also very good. But then I'm blind to my behavior. I don't see myself. And I certainly don't feel the impact that I have on others because I have my impact on myself, but not on others. And then that story probably is not good. But then sifting through this for the substance, doing the shifts that I was just talking about, we probably are going to gain something. Another type of triggers, we said that there were 3, okay? So we were talking about before truth triggers. They have to do with the substance of what is being given as feedback. But there is also a relationship trigger. It's not about the substance anymore. Because it was simple so far, you know, I said, let's complicate it a little bit more. So second one is relationship triggers. This is not about the substance of the feedback anymore. This is now about who said what they said. It's set off by the particular person that is giving us the feedback. You know what? I can't hear this from you. So it will go immediately, or it will be directly related with what we believe about the giver. If that giver for us, for one reason or the other one, through our wrong spotting, it's really easy for us to see what is wrong in the other ones, but not on ourselves. We have taken credibility from that person. Whatever they are saying, we're not going to hear, right? So that's a relationship trigger. I'm not hearing what you're saying because you have no credibility, because I wrong spot you, and you know what? I felt that you didn't have any credibility. I saw your wrong things. How we feel treated by the giver is also another one, which is all about the perceived asymmetry of the relationship. To feel treated, you have to feel that the giver has power over you, and that's an asymmetry. And as the receiver, you feel that that is not what you have. You don't have power over that person. So that's the perceived asymmetry. I cannot hear this from you because this is not fair. There is an asymmetry embedded in the relationship. The relationship triggers then, like I said before, they are all about the person that is giving us the feedback. So again, like we played games before. This is about playing the game of separating what is being said, the feedback or the data, from who is saying it, the giver. And what we do sometimes, before we talked about wrong spotting, and now we're going to talk about switch tracking. So for some reason, you're switching tracks. This is not anymore about what is being said. This is about you. This is about you saying it to me. It's not about the substance. It's about the person. It's not about what is being said. What is being said may be a real good thing for me to hear, but I cannot hear it from you. So I'm going to switch the track and I'm going to go to who says it is inappropriate or bad or not good, to what is being said that could be good. And then to not to fall into that, we have to identify the relationship system. So we first have to say, oh, there is a relationship here. And then we have to recognize that the feedback is created by the relationship. And that feedback is not the story of you, but the story of you and me, the giver and the receiver. And to better understand that trigger, I cannot hear this from you. You have to identify the dynamic of that relationship. It could be collaborative. I cannot hear this from you because you're telling me that I'm not collaborating. I cannot hear this from you because you're my supervisor and it's unfair. I cannot hear this from you because we are competing, and surely you don't have good reasons to tell me this. And not only that, you're trying to bring me down so I don't compete with you anymore. Or it could be adversarial. I just don't like you, so don't tell me anything. And you have to also try to identify the giver and the receiver contributions to that problem. Well, I don't like you. Why? Why I don't like you? Why I feel that I'm competing with you? If we are there for the same position, we should be collaborating. And then identity triggers is the last trigger, okay? And this is big because this is really your survival is at stake here. So these are set off by a perceived attack on your identity, and your identity is a story that you tell yourself about who you are and what the future holds for you. So pretty bad if you perceive an attack on that. So the things to do, again, playing games, is to learn how your temperament, the way that you respond to typically stressful information, because we all respond good to non-stressful information, but the way that you respond to stressful information affects your identity, affects the story that you tell yourself. So try to dismantle the distortions, your perceptions about the feedback, because it's not data, it's how you perceive it. So one of the things to do is try to see the drama that you were just told, or the end of the world. Try to decrease it to an actual size. And that will help you regain balance, which is what you have to do. So dismantling distortions will help you see it in the proper light and regain your balance. But I think that the most important thing, which is throughout the book, is just cultivate a growth identity. See your story as ever evolving, ever growing, not as having fixed traits. You have to try to displace to a coaching relationship or a coaching situation, which is dynamic. This is a way to do it better, rather than to an evaluation situation, which is static, it's fixed. This is where you stand. That's why it's phrased that way. All right, so the reference is that book. And thanks for your attention, and remember to give you your feedback on my feedback lecture. Thank you. Yes. Let me close it and go to. Oh, okay.
I figured out how.
Do that.
Yeah, do this.
Do this one.
And then there's.
Close it and show.
No. Move this out.
All right. Huh?
Sorry, move this. This is
move
kind of.
this
This moves it out of place.
All right.
Do that again.
Oh, no.
Where's your phone? So, is this the mouse? I just don't know how to use this mouse. I'm sorry. Where's? There we go.
Right there.
Okay. So you do. You can play it. Yeah. And then, yeah. That's
Good.
it. Just that button. Do you know? Do
Wow.
you see what I did?
No. Which
just
one?
Play that, right?
Uh-huh.
Click this. That's it. That's it. I didn't know that. But now you know. For the future.
Dr. Tului.
Can I unblock?
Of course.
Yeah.
Dr. Tului, I'm ready for you.